Are you feeling frustrated with life, lost and don't quite know what to do with yourself? Well, I'm going through that again myself, and it is infuriating to say the least. But hopefully, by spending some time sitting here and thinking about it, kind of getting my thoughts out there and just maybe even venting a little bit, warning about that. Hopefully, it serves a purpose and it don't just feel like I'm spinning my wheels, which it really does at the minute. Yeah, I don't want to ramble on too much before actually getting into the meat of the episode, so let's go get into it and I'll explain all. What's going on, beautiful people? This is the Perspective Chasers podcast, and I'm your host, John. On this episode, I'm thinking about feeling frustrated with life. And where to begin with this? I don't like to rant on the pod, and I don't want the pod to be something that comes off negative or anything else. But sometimes you need to vent, and I know I'm not the only one that feels like this. I know there's so many people out in the world that are frustrated with how things are, either in society, in their own life, in the world broader than their own. The amount of people unhappy with life far outweighs the people that are happy with life. Well, so it seems to me anyway. And there's so much of it that just becomes infuriating because people seem to fall on one end of the spectrum or the other. It's either one extreme or the next. People either have more than they need and don't know what to do with it, or people have nothing and don't know how to get it. And there's very few in the middle ground. Or if they are in the middle ground, they're almost on autopilot, just kind of settled in life and not really aspiring to do much more than what they've achieved. They're content or happy. And there's nothing to say that there's anything wrong with that. But if you're one of the people that want to go from one extreme to the next, where the hell do you start? There are so many things where it's I've tried thing after thing after thing, and sitting here thinking about it now, the first thing that I ask myself is, John, how much consistency have you had? Whether it be in little businesses I've started on the side that haven't ever taken off, or careers that I've started and got bored of, or whatever. There are so many instances where if I look at myself, there's a lot to kind of be laid at my own feet. And that's the thing when you realize that you're the culprit behind your own troubles. Is you can only laugh at yourself, because otherwise you're going to hate yourself. And I suppose that's probably where some of the frustration comes from. I'd be lying if I said some of the frustration in my life wasn't directed towards myself. I have plenty of frustration to go towards others and the world or whatever, but there is a hefty amount to be laid at my own feet. And I'm trying to work on it. I'm back in the gym and I'm back doing things that I consider beneficial to myself and in kind of shaping the person that I want to be. But it's a bumpy road for damn sure. And sometimes I ask myself, why? And that gets frustrating. Because when you don't quite know why, I know I want to be a good person. I know I want to make the world a better place and leave the world kind of better than it was when I got here. But I don't know why. I hope this don't get taken out of context, but if you used to think about it, what would it matter? If I just said, okay, cool, I'm going to look for kind of middle management level job or whatever, something that just pays me an okay enough wage or whatever to just coast through in life and just sit in that group. What would be wrong with that? Or what would be wrong with just doing nothing and being a bum? What, on the grand scheme of the world as a whole, would it really matter? Probably not. But it would matter to me. There is something about kind of honor and integrity and everything else about how you act when nobody else is around. And do I still want to be a good person if nobody else is around? Well, yeah. Like, it doesn't feel of any value to me to be a kind of force for evil in that sense. Like, there's plenty of bad in the world as it is. It don't need no more of that. So, trying to make the world a better place, that seems like a worthy cause to me. Uh, don't know how, don't know where to start, but hopefully just spending some time thinking about things, whether it be my own actions or the actions of others. Hopefully that's a small start. And I kind of thinking about doing this episode, it kind of, I see myself being a bit of a hypocrite because I'm back in the same situation in many sense, which I spoke about episodes and episodes and episodes ago, which is kind of feeling a bit negative and down in the dumps. And admittedly, I did say in that episode, it comes and it's not one of those things where negativity is squashed forever. It comes and it goes. But it does kind of remind you that you still haven't succeeded yet, which in itself is bloody infuriating. So taking that time to kind of look back and like look at the kind of jobs or the not even jobs, let's look bigger than that. Like any kind of venture that I've gone on to kind of change my life in any sense has pretty much failed. Like I've managed to improve my immediate surroundings and my immediate quality of life and things like that, but in terms of absolutely like changing everything, changing where I live and this, that, and everything else, like I still haven't achieved that, and that's very high up on my to-do list. But I don't know where to begin with it, and things I've tried before have failed. So I kind of ended up in this point where I'm just like kind of coasting in that sense, where it's like, well, it's not the worst, it's not the best, but it will do for now. Do you know what I mean? Which I think is the groove a lot of people get in life with many different aspects of life, whether it be work, relationships, living, whatever. Like, honestly, I don't even know if I want to live in the UK my whole life. And I've done very little exploring outside of that. And that frustrates me. the, the list of things that frustrate me is absolutely massive. And don't get me wrong, there are excuses or reasons I could come up with that I haven't done X, Y, or Z. But at the same time, it doesn't change it. So the only thing that's going to change it is if I change. And trying to change is a slow process. So you get these balls of frustration. And now while I'm sitting here thinking about it and actually talking about it out loud, it makes a lot more sense. And I see why I'm so frustrated with myself. And even though, like, so I will still go through the motions, even if I'm hobbled, even if I feel down in the dumps or whatever. If I know I've got to do the pod, I'll do the pod. If I know I've got to do whatever it is, I'll make sure I do it. But I don't always feel great in the process of doing it. So taking the time to actually sit down and think about, like, okay, even when you felt rough, you pushed through and you done it, you got the work done, so then it's still there to pick up on the other end. Like that is valuable, and I appreciate myself for that to no end. But it is an autopilot tactic. You literally just put yourself on autopilot and go through the motions, and it works for a short time. But I don't want to live there. I don't want to live in autopilot. I've done it time and time again. When I used to work security and work endless hours, I used to put myself into autopilot all the time, and it leaves very little room for yourself. So when I was working all the hours under the sun and I was better off financially and this, that, and everything else, I had no time to actually enjoy my life. My life was spent serving others. And now I really don't want to do that. So I've ended up back in this kind of coast mode. And now I want to kind of re-aim and go down a whole different avenue. But you don't know how. And because of the way my life is, I can't drop the ball. I can't stop everything and just recalculate. I have to keep things going and recalculate on the go, basically. And there's going to be a lot of people out there that are in that same situation. They like the bills don't stop, life don't stop. All of these things have to still happen. So you've got to kind of keep all of the plates spinning and keep your life going at the same time. And again, it gets frustrating. Like literally before this episode, I went to the gym, had a workout, got out some of my frustration, and it helped a bit. And sitting here doing the pods actually helped a lot more than I thought it would in kind of clearing that just frustration, figuring out where it is, and again, just venting it out. Like, I've said it before and I'll say it again, but sometimes just getting things out, just expressing them in any way is enough to kind of ease off a bit of that pressure and stop you exploding. Because boy, did I feel like I was going to explode earlier. But it's one of them ones where these are just tools that you learn over time. I suppose that's probably a good reason I've done this episode like this, because you kind of see that it does work. Like, none of this stuff, none of life, there's a formal education in. We're all kind of learning on the go, and very few people kind of talk about how they manage or deal with things. And if they do, they're often trying to sell you something, quite honestly. And I guess I'm trying to sell you something in a way myself, but more deeper than that, like it's that idea that once you have these tools and learn these lessons, there is a way out. And you'll get frustrated and it will come round in cycles, but you'll get better at managing it. And sometimes you'll feel completely at sea. No matter how good you are at managing yourself or your psyche or your mentality or whatever way you want to put it, these cycles will come around and you'll get caught off guard every now and then. And you just got to take that beat and reassess. Like, at least for me anyway. Like, everybody else is gonna have their own kind of coping mechanisms or whatever, but for me, I need to lay everything out. Sometimes I need to write things down and get it out of my head, because if it's just stuck in your head, there's no end to it. Like, if you've got a list going around in your head, there's literally no end to that list. It can just cycle and cycle and cycle. Whereas if you write it on paper, no matter how long the list is, eventually it's going to have an end point. So all these little practices, they add up and help you manage yourself better. And it's not to say you're going to be a perfect human being. I don't think any of us will ever be a perfect human being. But if you improve a little bit every day or every couple of days, whatever you can manage, like if you just improve incrementally over time, hopefully life will get better. At least you'll get better. Like, that's probably the biggest thing is like, although I'm not where I want to be, I'm far prouder of who I am and what I'm doing now than what I was doing a couple of years ago. And it's not to say that what I was doing wasn't respectable or whatever else. It's just, it lacked purpose. Like now I'm looking for that kind of something to excite me in life. I'm looking to be excited about life and actually live my life again, opposed to just kind of bury my head in the sand and just get by. And like that get by mentality is okay sometimes. Sometimes you need that to survive. Like seriously, sometimes you do. But it can't be all of life, because then what's the point? And again, that's probably a part of the frustration, is feeling like, what is the point? Like when you get to the point in life where you wake up and you don't know why you're waking up or what there is to do. Like sometimes you just exist for the sake of existing. And if you're in a low headspace, that that's like the abyss. That really does kind of leave you just drifting in nothingness, wondering why, to no end really. But it happens, and like I think it happens to all of us, or at least I'm telling myself it happens to all of us, or at least more than myself, hopefully. But it ends. like on last episode, I said everything is temporary. The frustration is temporary. Like you can't hold that frustration. You can't hold that anger. No matter what feeling or emotion it is, it's always going to be temporary. You have to kind of accept it for what it is, experience the moment as much as you can, and then move on. There are going to be some unpleasant parts of life where you have to bury your head in the sand and just get through it. But you have to remind yourself that you got to pick your head out at the end and kind of start looking around, see where you can improve life. Because if you don't start to look to improve it, if you don't start to make life better, it's not going to get better. Like, I'm a firm believer in nobody's going to make your life better for you. Like, you came into this world alone, you'll leave it alone. You might as well learn to survive in it alone. Unfortunately, that's the ethos that I've kind of grew up with and kind of solidified over the years. Whether it be everybody's truth or not doesn't really matter. It's my truth. So understanding that, like, no matter the level of frustration, it will pass. No matter what aspect of life it is, it will get better eventually. You just have to put the work in, and sometimes you got to take your foot off the gas in order to put that work in. But it will get better. And as for the rest of the world, I don't know. That I really hope gets better. But honestly, who knows? There's so much that is uncertain in life that it really is just a gamble. So you just have to hope for the best. There's so much that is, yeah, just uncertain is the only word I can use for it at the minute. That you kind of have to just make sure you're all right. And then anything beyond that is always going to be a gamble. So focus on yourself, make things kind of as safe as they can be for you, and hope that the world is better, or gets better rather. In terms of other people, they're always going to be out of your control. You can hope for the best. You can try to communicate as much as you can to get on the same page as people, but it's not always going to be possible. And sometimes you've got to go your separate ways. Sometimes an awkward conversation or a hard conversation is enough to fix things. Sometimes it's not. Like, be wise enough to know when you got to walk away. And sometimes it's painful, but it's also necessary. Like, you can't get better if you don't kind of, you can't get better if you don't start that healing process and kind of walk away from whatever it is that's hurting you. No matter what it is, if you keep letting it hurt you, you won't heal. So eventually you have to let yourself heal and walk away. And that's painful, that gets frustrating, and all the other emotions that come with it. But it is ripping off that band-aid and allowing yourself to start that healing process. It can't start unless the hurting stops. So let the hurting stop and let life start over, start anew. Right? Every day there's a new day, a new dawn, whatever you want to, whichever way you want to kind of put it. There is a chance to start afresh. You could move cities, move countries, move halfway around the world if you wanted to, or if you had the means to. There's a whole new way of life out there for you if you wanted to go for it. So don't get caught up with the idea all you know is all that there is, because there is far more to life than any one of us knows. There is far more in this world than any one person can experience. There is so much to life that the ups and downs are all just part and parcel of it. Every now and then you're going to get frustrated, and other times you're going to be absolutely euphoric. they're always going to be temporary, but they're always going to come and go. So try appreciate them as much as they can, the good and the bad. But I'm going to wrap this episode up there because, in all honesty, the mic battery's dying and I need to change it because I didn't change it before this episode because I forgot. But the seed for this episode is going to be if you are feeling frustrated, try vent. Try vent to a friend or just vent out loud. Just get it off your chest and decompress. It's not the be all and end all. Everything is temporary. So just try to manage your way through it. Manage yourself in the moment and you'll get through. And times will get better. You just have to keep trying. That bit of consistency will go a long way in the long run. Just make sure you're kind of using autopilot as best you can. All the best, and I'll catch you on the next one.